We all have problems. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that when I said the word problem, your brain immediately came up with three. Maybe it's your child, maybe it's your health or your marriage, maybe it's your finances, or simply finding enough hours in the day. The funny thing is, we're usually pretty good at solving everyone else's problems. A friend calls and you're like, here's what you should do. A coworker vents and you immediately go into, have you tried? A complete stranger somehow tells us their life story while we're standing in line at Target, and suddenly we're amateur therapists. But when it's our own problems, it's different. We get stuck. I recently had some revelations. I learned some things about myself, and I discovered that before we can change a behavior, we first have to understand it. Today, I'm going to share two stories that taught me exactly that. Real change, it doesn't just happen by accident. It begins the moment we stop trying to fix everything and start trying to understand why things are the way they are. By shifting our perspective, we can create meaningful progress in our lives. Now, let me tell you a little story. This is my first one. It's early morning and the sun is already blazing. It's summer in Georgia. We know it's hot. My 2-year-old daughter and I are walking around the neighborhood. We're exploring nature, we're replenishing our vitamin D, and enjoying spending time with one another. My daughter, she's running ahead of me. She's eager to discover the inhabitants of the world around us. She's explaining her view of the roly-poly bug she's playing with as she gently prods it with a stick to induce its namesake defense mechanism. And as we move on, she calls out the bird sound she hears and points out the planes that fly overhead. She is insistent in kicking the pine cone we come across as she sets each one up and ready to score an invisible goal. Suddenly, I hear her proclaim in her outside voice, "Look at the cute doggy!" I'm sure our neighbors all the way at the end of our neighborhood heard her. She can be quite loud. We continue our walk, and as we round the corner, a friendly neighbor approaches with a large smile and a ready wave. Instantly, my chattering toddler turns mute. She hides behind my leg, peeking out cautiously. Maybe she's born with it. We've all heard that saying, but in this case, I'm not referring to Maybelline. I'm talking about temperament. As I was studying theories to complete this project, one of the first ideas that helped guide my thinking was temperament. Temperament is really just our default setting. It's our innate way of thinking and behaving. Some kids are going to burst into a room like they own the place, and others walk in like they're undercover FBI agents quietly assessing the situation before making their move. Neither child is wrong. They're just different. The more I learned about temperament, the more I realized that my daughter wasn't refusing to interact. She just simply has a more reserved temperament. And I understand because I was the same way when I was her age. But now my question became, how do I help her feel comfortable enough to want to say hi? Because I could see her lingering gazes that she wanted to interact with others, especially peers her own age. That question led me to psychologist Lev Vygotsky. Vygotsky believed that children don't magically wake up one morning knowing how to do something. They learn by doing life with someone else first, right? Let's look at three of his core concepts. First is the zone of proximal development. This is a sweet spot of learning. It's the space between what a child can do completely on their own, and for my daughter right now, it was withdrawing and hiding, finding her secure base, and what they cannot do yet, which is where my daughter was giving a stranger a high five or holding a full conversation with someone new. Scaffolding is another core concept. This is the temporary, keyword temporary, support I would provide to help her bridge that gap. You might start with a lot of support and gradually you peel it back as the child gains more confidence. And then social play was as a leading activity was a big idea for Vygotsky. He thought that for young children, play is a primary engine of development. In play, a child always behaves beyond their average age and above their daily behavior. Think about it. Kids don't just play, they're practicing. They're practicing being parents, teachers, doctors, firefighters, even grocery shoppers. They're learning about the world in a place where mistakes don't have real consequences. And then it hit me. I needed to give my daughter a chance to rehearse first. So we began playing. During our playtime, her stuffed animals met new stuffed animals. They waved, they introduced themselves, they made tiny stuffed animal friends. Sometimes they were shy or hesitant to say hello, and we made sure that those feelings were validated. I even wrote her a princess story called Being Brave Can Start with a Wave. Then we made a song with the same title and subject matter.
Sometimes when I meet someone new, my tummy wiggles, maybe yours too. I feel shy and don't know what to say, but being brave can start with a wave.
This imaginary world allowed my daughter to rehearse social interactions until she felt ready to bring them into the real world. This process followed a clear path. Pretend, then practice, then ready, set, go. You're ready to do it in the real world. I had been asking for performance without providing the necessary practice. By allowing for a rehearsal phase, the pressure, of course, it vanished and we were able to move to the next stage. After our pretend play, we then would practice during our walks. We began by waving at flowers, birds, and mushrooms on our walks, just to practice our greetings. We'd even wave to a neighbor every once in a while from afar. I would model the behavior, and then my daughter would reproduce it. These were necessary steps to help build her confidence. So now I was starting to get a better understanding of my daughter. I was understanding what was driving the behavior. She had a naturally reserved temperament, and I wanted to help her build confidence without changing who she is. So I stumbled upon Erickson with what felt like a gentle parenting reality check and definitely made me do some reflection. He reminds us that toddlers are in the stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt. They're busy figuring out, can I do this? And our job isn't to rush in and do it for them. It's also not to accidentally convince them that they can't. That made me stop and think about myself. Was I helping my daughter build confidence, or have I been unintentionally wrapping her in emotional bubble wrap? That question led me to another developmental theory, attachment theory. Psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth introduced the idea of a secure base, and absolutely love that phrase because I can picture it. Think about the last time you saw a toddler at a playground. What's one of the first things they do? They run out to explore. They stop. They look back, checking to see if mom or dad or guardian is still there. Yep. Then they take off again. They aren't running away from their caregiver. They're running because of their caregiver. That caregiver becomes home base, a safe place to return to whenever the world feels a little too big. And I realized that's exactly what my daughter was doing. She wasn't hiding behind my leg because she wanted me to rescue her. She was checking to make sure home base was still there. That realization completely changed how I thought. Instead of trying to push her out from behind me and telling her, say hi, I started asking myself, how can I help her feel safe enough to step out on her own? So I started greeting people warmly. I smiled, I waved, I talked naturally, and if she wanted to stay beside me or behind me, that was fine. If she wanted to wave, wonderful. If she whispered hi, we celebrated it. The goal was never independence overnight. The goal was confidence, one interaction at a time. And the more she realized I'm not going to force her to interact, the more willing she has become to try it herself. Turns out that sometimes the best way to become more independent is to make sure that they know, without a doubt, they always have somewhere safe to come back to. My job isn't to push her into the world. My job is to become a place that she feels safe enough to leave. Helping my daughter was one rewarding experience. And when I needed to turn that lens on myself and think about what I needed to change, I jumped right into those developmental principles that helped her thrive to see if they could help me solve my own personal hurdle. So when I actually started to think about my own personal challenge or problem, I thought about exercise. That was one that immediately came to mind. I mean, who among us hasn't looked in the mirror from time to time and seen that extra little band of fat or extra dimple somewhere, a little jiggle that didn't used to be there, and think, I need to exercise? I would do that. Then I would go on about my day. Or you'd be scrolling through a news article, you see the links at the end saying 5 minutes to a flat belly or lose those thighs in 10 minutes. You'd be like, yeah, I need to join the gym. I really need to get on that exercise. And then the day would continue. Or you'd be munching deliciously, a delicious snack, perfectly salted chips. And again, think to yourself, gosh, I need to start exercising and I need to eat better too. But then life would continue. The day would go on, and I wouldn't accomplish exercising or adding in any kind of consistent physical routine into my daily life. So, what was stopping me? I wanted to exercise. We all could use it. There's definitely benefits to it, but I wasn't doing it. I mean, I could give a million reasons why I couldn't do it. Who has the energy or the time to exercise? And the gym? That was a pipe dream. How was I going to get over to the gym? Wasn't going to try to drag my 2-year-old along, even if they had in-house childcare. And the cost? Was I really going to start going to the gym, or was I just going to waste money on a membership? Those are just a few of the reasons that would go through my mind each time I thought about exercise. And I think we all have that struggle with wanting things out of life, exercise, being more positive, to stop procrastinating. But instead of just wishing for more willpower, I decided to ask myself, why is this not happening? Why am I not exercising? And I looked into it more using developmental psychology. And not only did I look for the why, but I also looked for the how do I make it begin? How do I start? It was at this time that I came across psychologist Paul Baltus. And suddenly I realized my problem, it wasn't motivation, it was strategy. Baltus developed something called the SOC model, which stands for selection, optimization, and compensation. It's actually something we do every single day. Selection simply means you choose what's important. Optimization means you figure out the best way to make it happen. And compensation means that when life changes, throws you a curveball, you don't quit, you adjust. For me, that looked like selection, which was deciding that exercise mattered enough to make time for it. Optimization was finding workouts I genuinely enjoyed instead of pretending I was suddenly going to become one of those people who wakes up at 4:30 every morning to run 5 miles while smiling. That's not me. And compensation, that was realizing the gym wasn't happening. Between a toddler, teaching, graduate school, and trying to, just remember my husband's name, driving to the gym is not a realistic goal for me at this time. So YouTube became my personal trainer instead. The biggest lesson Baltus taught me is that successful people aren't necessarily the ones with fewer obstacles. They're the ones who get really good at adjusting the plan instead of abandoning the goal. Okay, so now I was ready, right? I've got Baltus' theory. He's saying I've got to view exercise as not just a task to add to my schedule, but intentionally allocate time to it and resources to it. So I've chosen it. I've selected that exercise is a priority. It's something I want to do. And a way to optimize, I had to find some strategies that made it more likely that I would succeed. I decided, okay, I'm going to get up an hour earlier than my summer hours. I'm used to getting up at 5 o'clock anyways during the school year. Been getting to sleep in till like 6:30 over the summer, but I'm going to get back up at 5 o'clock, 5:30. Shouldn't be an issue. I'm used to it. And I'm going to use YouTube. I'm going to find a few videos that I like, put them in rotation, and great. I'm ready to go. Oh, and I have a wonderful checklist that's going to keep me on task. I'm going to check off my little calendar and be ready to go. So a week passes. I look back at my wonderful little calendar where I've written down my exercise days, because the goal was to exercise 3 to 4 times a week. I'm looking at my days, and there's not one check on that list. I had failed. I hadn't gotten up at 5:30. I hadn't wanted to sacrifice that sleep because summer just feels a little different than the school year. When I know I don't have to get up to go to work, it was hard to make myself get up to start exercising. And so, what do I do now? I'm not going to abandon exercise. So this just tells me I need to change my strategy a little bit. I need to figure out what is going to help me actually achieve my goal. So that early waking was not going to work. I wasn't going to add in exercise if I was relying on getting up early. I had to reallocate time in my day. So I decided to start doing my exercise after my daughter and I came in from our daily walk, about 30 minutes. Again, using my wonderful little YouTube videos. And I also made myself a digital checklist, one where I could see these green little boxes with the complete next to them getting filled in. And it felt so satisfying to get to check off completed every time I would do my exercise. So I was feeling such a sense of satisfaction getting to check off those boxes, but also from all the benefits of achieving exercise. Once I had those green boxes, that was it. I was excited about exercise and I liked doing it. Felt really good afterwards. And that second, third, and into the fourth week, I was able to accomplish my 3 to 4 times a week. In fact, I was able to surpass it. Ultimately, I didn't want to become a different person. I didn't have to be. Same thing with my daughter. I was never trying to change her into a different person. We always just want to be the best version of ourselves. And for me, that was a healthier version of myself. Developmental psychology has taught me that when we understand the why behind our issues, we can stop fighting ourselves and start supporting our own growth. Our problems are just opportunities to better understand ourselves. So if you have 99 problems, don't try to solve them all today. Think back to those 3 initial hurdles we talked about at the beginning. And before you jump to any solutions, try to understand them first. Pick one. Understand one. Work on one. It's a process of small, deliberate steps rather than a whole overnight overhaul. And before you know it, you'll have 99 problems minus one. That's how we make real, sustainable progress. Thank you for watching this video. Remember that one good choice inspires another. Thank you.